Now we're recording for the people who aren't here. Welcome to week 10, the last week of Level C Math. We're just going through a practice final. We'll get the link to it so that it'll have the same numbers, because on the website, when you reload it, it changes numbers and maybe other things each time. So we have a specific one that's been saved as a PDF file with no answers at the bottom, just like you would get for your actual final when you are ready. And we're just going through it together, working on things. So number one, prime factorization is the tree. And number two, turning something into a percent riplop helps us there. Okay.
So for the final, are we doing that together as a class, or are we just doing one of these and like sending it to you?
It is on your own. The written part, I will send you one of these, you work on it, and then send me photos of your work.
And do we have to have that turned in by a certain time?
Yep, Friday of finals week. So get one done earlier in finals week if you want time to do another one in case you don't pass the first time.
Okay, so next Friday?
Next Friday, yeah.
Okay.
A week and a few days. After the written one, there's the oral exam where I will ask you questions about all the work that other people have turned in and your own. Something that you did well that you want to brag about. Any careless mistakes, you'll get a chance to fix them so they don't just sort of haunt you. And then I'll show you some mistakes that other people made and say, can you fix them? And if that you want to do with other people, that's fine. Lots of people feel more at ease and social if we're sort of going round robin talking rather than just one-on-one, put you on the spot math questions. But it's up to you. You can do your oral exam just by yourself if that's best, or we can try and schedule something with other people. Should we do number 3?
Yeah.
Should I write it out, or do you want to just call out and we'll see if everyone agrees what the answer is? If you are not voting, I will just write it out. So write into percent. That looks like a very big number, 6,000%, but that's okay. Percents can be bigger than 100. It's 60 times as big as it used to be. That would be great if you are saving for retirement or something. Number 4, we could do lots of ways. We could do it as a proportion. We could do it with the decimal point scoot thing with K HD blah, 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 blah. We could do it with unit analysis. How did you do it?
I haven't done it yet, but I think I'm going to do this scoot one.
Should I come back in a moment, or do you want to just tell us and I'll write it?
I think I got the answer.
Okay, how did you do it?
Do you just do 3 scoops to the left since it's
It is. Keeps
going from meters to kilometers or kilometers?
So the scoot way is King Henry does usually drink chocolate milk. killer hobos dance under dazzling crystal mobiles, whichever one of these acronyms you like best. And I always, before I read the problem, think about the U. What is my plane unit going to be? In this case, it's meters. And everything else is the prefix. So I'm going from plane meters, that's what I have to start with, to kilometers. K is for kilo. And yes, 1, 2, 3 to the left. So then I take my number I started with and do the same thing. When I scoot off the edge, I need a 0. And we're done. How much to round it, I'm not sure. It doesn't give me a great real life situation. Somehow I have a crate and they've measured it to the nearest millimeter, right? 3 places, 1, 2, 3 is millimeter. It's not terribly hard to measure something to the nearest millimeter. You can do that with a ruler. I believe I have this much accuracy. On the other hand, it is a bit awkward to talk about kilometers with that many decimal places. So I'm not quite sure why I am trying to measure this crate in kilometers, and without knowing that, I'm not quite sure how much to round. So I'll just keep all of my accuracy because it's a realistic amount of accuracy, even if it looks kind of dopey. As another way to do this, you could have said, I don't like the King Henry thing. I like proportions because I cross multiply whenever I can. So one situation is my generic unit conversion rate. It's always true that there's 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. So that's what's always true. That's just how meters and kilometers fit together. On the other side, we have this particular problem, 12.227 meters, and I'm not sure how many kilometers. And then you could cross multiply and you would get the same answer. You could also do this one with unit analysis, write what they give us, 12.227 meters. Is it a fraction? No, so I put it over 1. And then I'm going to start multiplying things. I want to get rid of meters. So let's put the other meters on the bottom so they cancel. 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. And that will give you the same answer as above. But the top one for most people is the least amount of work. Questions on number 4? I'm going to label things just so it looks a little better for the archive. So. Everyone okay with 4?
Yeah.
I'll pause the recording if we're still working on the next few. Remind me to unpause it before I rate. Okay, before we start, did you get A or B?
I got A.
A.
I got A.
A is right. We talked a while ago that you can do the division either way. I'm going to do it dollars divided by ounces because price per ounce is what most people like best. If you are an ounce per price person, that's also okay. So brand A. We're finding two different unit rates. 42.85 divided by 18. It's about $2.38. That should be good. And label that ounces. B. $14. Good job, Brandon. Are you ready for number 6?
Yes.
So you could do this as a proportion. The hint is there mostly just because of the order that we were introduced to these topics. If you liked the proportion method, great. I'll do it the unit rate method first, because that's what the hint says. Oops. There. 27.27. So 1,991. Should I do it as a proportion also?
Yeah.
So first situation is proportional to second situation. The first one had 60 yards and 2.2 minutes. The other one has to have yards on top and minutes on the bottom. The 73 minutes is what we know, so the yards we're looking for. So when I cross multiply, We're going to get y times 2.2 equals 60 times 73. We're going to have to divide both sides by 2.2 to get y by itself. And then you would get the same answer. You would do it in a slightly different order, 60 times 73 first, and then a divided 2.2. But it's the same thing. As a side note, if I put this 73 minutes over 1, then it looks a lot like unit analysis, if that makes the unit analysis people happy. Questions about number 6?
No, thank you.
Are we ready for 7, or do you need some more time?
I need some time.
Okay, I'll pause the recording. 7's a quick one. It's another unit rate. You can't do a proportion on this one. The proportions need at least 3 numbers and looking for a 4th. This one, they only give us 2 numbers. So
You just divide.
it's just dividing. The only thing you can do wrong is which order you divide it. So they say people per square mile. So people per becomes division and square miles, and that tells you the order to put the things. And other than that, yes, it's only division. 951, 200.
I got 279,764.
Okay. I trust you, but I also am terrible at hearing things and remembering them as you read them out. So I'm just gonna be lazy and paste that. And it's a word problem, so we should label it people per square mile. And you would round it to the nearest person, right? So this is a 5. That's what you got?
Yeah.
Okay, number 8. Number 8 is different than the one we did earlier with the decimal point scoops. This one stayed in the metric system, the SI system. It was only putting a prefix on meters, or changing the prefix on meters could work also. This one, we're going out of the metric system, out of the SI system to have yards. So that first method doesn't work. We have to either do it the proportion way or the unit analysis way, because that one only works if we stay in metric. Let's do it both. So one situation is proportional to another. The thing that's always true is that there is 1.094 yards in 1 meter. That tells me yards has to stay on top and meters has to stay on the bottom. And what do we have? 32 yards. So y times 1.094 is 1 times 32, which is just 32. I'm going to need to get y by itself. So what is that? 32 divided by 1.094, 29.25 roughly. You can round it how you want. The unit analysis way starts with what they give us, 32 yards. Is it a fraction? No, so we put it over 1. I want to get rid of yards, so I'll put the other yards on the bottom, so they'll cancel. And from yards, I can get to meters. 1 meter is 1.094 yards. The yards is gone, only meters is left on top. The yards is gone, nothing on the bottom. And that's going to give me the same thing. Questions about either way for number 8?
No, thank you.
Okay, are we ready for 9?
Yeah.
So this time it's slightly trickier. We're upping the difficulty by not giving you the conversion rate in the actual problem. We just have to know, from having done these before, that 1 quart is how many cups? If we didn't know that, we could go to the measurement unit and their history thing. And remember this picture, or set of pictures?
So 4 cups?
4 cups. 1 quart is 4 cups. And other than that, it's just the same. Should we do this like a proportion or a unit analysis? Anyone have a preference?
Unit.
Okay, so it gives us 14 cups. Is that a fraction? No, so put it over 1. I want to get rid of cups, so I put the other on the bottom. And I can go from cups to lots of things. What I want is quarts. So 4 cups is a quart. I get 14 quarts over 4. $3.5. Now for a few of these, if you are good at them because you've been doing a lot of them, you just know, am I supposed to divide or am I supposed to multiply? The whole reason that we're doing these proportion or unit analysis is the physical writing it on the page tells us when do we multiply and when do we divide, so we can't get that wrong. It tells us what's on top or on bottom. So if you don't need to write this, that's okay. But especially on a test when everyone's brain tends to turn to sludge, and using one method or the other makes it so you don't have to figure it out. It's just right there. Do I multiply? Do I divide? Should we do number 10?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 10 and 11, they can be quick. People liked the scoot method before. Should we scoot both of these?
Yeah.
Some people like writing it sort of like a fill in the blank. 227,012 centigrams is how many kilograms? It's kind of funny. So I make my list of letters. Killer hobos dance under dazzling crystal mobiles. I like to label what it is. This is grams this time. I'm going from centigrams to kilograms. That's a lot of scoots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 left. So the decimal point is hiding there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 2.27012. How about 11? What did people get?
Three scoots to the right.
We're starting at plane liters. The U for plane unit. And we're going to milli. 1, 2, 3 to the right, just like you said. 1, 2, 3 to the right. So 12,227 milliliters. I kind of wrote them different ways. You can do however makes you happy. Okay, 12 is just a freebie thing. Take out your calculator, use the square root button. It just wants to make sure you know how to do that. What did people get for 12?
I got 14.
Exactly. For 13, writing something as a mixed number. So we have two parts. We have the 10 and the decimal part, 0.16. What do we do to make a mixed number out of that?
Is it 10 over 16? I can't remember how to do that.
Now, the 10 is a whole number. It's just going to hang out front while we're doing things. The 16, how do I say this decimal more formally? It's 16 what? 16 what's?
Hundredths.
16 hundredths. So now I have made a mixed number. I could just put a box around it and be done, except for that annoying rule that I have to reduce my fractions. So I can divide top and bottom by 4. 16 divided by 4 is 4. There's 4 quarters and $1. And now I'm done. Questions about that one?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay. You want some time to do the tax ones, and then we'll check in a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
14 has a couple steps. What do we do first?
Turn the percentage into a decimal.
Okay. So 20%, I turn into 0.2 using Riplop. Then what?
You times the 1219 times the 0.2.
If I was very accurate, I could, but it asked me to round, so I will do that.
Oh, I wasn't sure if it meant after or before, if that makes sense.
So since I have a calculator, this is kind of silly. Why did I bother to round? $2.40. The reason it asks you to do this is that I could say 10% of a number is easy to do. Who remembers the trick for 10% of a number?
Is it a decimal scoot?
Yep. It's one scoot left. So we could take the $12, change it into 1.2. That's the 10%. And then double it to go from 10% to 20%. So you could get the $2.40 in your head that way. But these days, everyone has their cell phone, and you don't have to show off at a restaurant by finding the tip with mental math. Okay, 15, same kind of thing. So we have $237. I multiply it by what?
0.6.
$14.22. If you didn't get 0.06, then that was because I take the 6%. I'm going to go left out of percent. That makes it 0.06. $16, you just do that twice. 14% times a number, 6% times a number, and pick whichever is bigger. Did anyone do that already? Which one did they get bigger?
I didn't do that one yet.
Oh,
Me either.
I'll pause for a moment. 16, I'm not going to write them all out, but you can do this. So 233 times 0.06 and so on. So which is bigger? The first one was. 17, I want to walk through carefully. It has one extra step. So simple interest, what does that mean? Simple interest is designed for 1 year. That's why it's called an annual simple interest rate. Annual is per year. So how these work is we do exactly what we've just been doing for several problems. And then we have to fiddle because it's not a 1 year time span. So we're going to start with a percent of the money. So 4702, $705.30. So if it was a 1 year loan, that's how much interest it would cost. Everyone okay so far?
Yeah.
Then we get the part of a year discount. This person, whoever borrowed it, this business, doesn't have to pay all that money. We take the 705 and prorate it. So we're going to multiply it by something to show that it really was only 120 days. Any ideas what to multiply?
$120.
There'll be a 120. Give you a hint.
Is it over 365?
It is. Can you explain why?
Because that's how many days are in a year.
Yeah. So this is a fraction of a year. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's a number less than 1, so it's going to shrink this. We get a discount because we didn't have to wait all year. So times 120 divided by 365 gives me 231.88.
Yeah, I did that completely wrong.
Well, that's the first time you've seen it, so don't feel it.
I did it as a proportion. And it was way more than that.
I might even want to remind myself what happened by labeling this for a 120-day. Just to kind of emphasize the difference. Simple interest you don't see very often. It used to be very common to go to a bank and get a loan for simple interest or to go to a payday loan store. But these days, almost all of the loans are compound interest. Now that we have computers, doing more math for compound interest isn't a big deal because the computers do all the math for us. If this was compound interest, it would behave differently. You would have something like a credit card statement where you would find how much interest there is each month, and it would build on itself and get complicated. That's more than we're doing in level C. But this isn't bad. This is just multiply by a fraction. It's always something over 365 based on how many days this is. And there are still plenty of payday loan stores that do this, so it's not terribly impractical. And it's the same time you're taking any amount and prorating it. Maybe you have a certain amount of cost for some kids thing, and if you have a second kid, it's only 80% as much, or something like that. So taking a dollar amount and multiplying it by something smaller than one happens all the time in real life. Other questions or comments?
So for number 16, I was going over my work and I keep getting 30.94. I don't know, like,
It
why?
is. No, it is. I just wrote it wrong.
Okay, I didn't catch it at first.
Okay, thank you for catching it.
You're welcome.
I have the answer key open on a window, but it's kind of behind the window we're looking at, so I'm only peeking at it if somebody tells me to. But since you tell me to, I peek and I say, yes, it is. Okay, now we're getting into the slightly longer ones. These are the ones to do with unit analysis. There's just a few too many steps to do it as a proportion.
Yeah, I don't really understand how to do these ones.
Okay. Well, I will put them on the board, and if someone wants, we can wait and you can try them yourself, or I can just walk you through one of them, and then the second one you can try and do yourself. Does someone want to lead me through 18, or should I do it?
Either way.
What if I put the steps on and then somebody narrate to me what to do? So step one, what do I write?
23 cups over one day.
Yeah. This time it is a fraction. Someone is describing a rate of cups per day. Everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, next step, I want to get out of cups and into gallons. And I want to get out of days and into years. It doesn't matter which is first. What do you want to do?
Gallons.
Gallons. So can I go directly from cups to gallons? Or remember that picture we had before? How many cups are in a gallon?
16.
4, 4, 4, and 4. So 1 gallon is 16 cups. The cups can cancel. Great, now I've gotten at least one of my measurement units what I want. I'm at gallons, but I don't want gallons per day. I want gallons per year. So I have to keep going. Multiply by another thing.
Day over year.
Mm-hmm. And why is she putting days on top?
Because that's what we're
So
looking.
cancel with the other day.
Yeah, this first one was on the bottom. So if they're going to cancel, I have to have one on top and one on bottom. So that was those 2 steps. I filled in the numbers as I went. Some people like to do the words first to get the plan and know that gallons per year is going to work out, and then fill in the numbers, but they're kind of the same thing. Then we multiply. So 23 times 1 times 365, and all that's left is gallons. And 1, you can leave out the times 1s if you want, they don't do anything. And all that's left is years. So 23 times 365, that's 83.95. 1 times 16 times 1 is 16. Then we simplify. How do we turn any fraction into a decimal? Just like we did earlier, top divided by bottom. And I get about 525. And this time it kind of high rolled the random number, so poor Chuck has to go to the hospital. Questions on that one?
No.
So your turn for this one, all positive. Okay, where did we start with this one?
60 yards over 2.2 minutes.
Okay, as before, we don't want yards and we don't want minutes. We want miles an hour. So we're going to have to change things. We'll need at least 1 change to go from yards to miles. We'll need at least 1 change to go from minutes to hours. Which one do you want to do first? Should we deal with the yards or the minutes?
Minute.
Okay. So we have a minute on the bottom. We need the other one on the top. And we're going from minutes to hours. Do we know how to do that? Sure. 60 minutes in an hour. How about this one? Yards going into miles. Do we know how many yards are in a mile? We could also go yards to feet and feet to mile in 2 steps.
I think it'd be easier to go to feet to miles.
Okay, so we'll do yards to feet. Some people have memorized yards per mile, but most of us just know that a mile is 5,280 feet. So I have to put this yards on the bottom, so it will cancel with the other one, and that puts the feet there. And then I put the second feet on the bottom, so it cancels with the first feet. Now we have miles per hour. So we'll fill in the numbers. This was 3 feet in a yard, and 1 mile is 5,280 feet. Everyone good so far?
Yeah.
So I'll multiply across 60 times 60 times 3, 60 times 60 times 3, 10,800. .2 times 5,280. 11616. Everyone okay with that step?
Yeah.
So 10,800 divided by the previous answer. So we're getting about 0.93. He might be a wonder snail, but at least with these random numbers, he's not very fast. I'm rounding to I'm rounding to 2 decimal places because the general rule is to use the same number they give you, which in these problems was 1 decimal place or 1 more. So I did the 1 more. Questions about 19?
No, thank you.
Okay, now we're to geometry stuff. Are these ones you all want to do on the board, or you want to do all of them on the board?
Sure.
So for all of these kind of multi-part area puzzly ones, I wanted to start with just sort of a plan that described shapes and didn't have any formulas, didn't have any numbers. So I want to start by saying something like the red area is equal to what?
$14,000.
Oh yeah, it's the whole thing. I'll put the numbers in later. And then what? We have to get rid of these 2 rectangles. What arithmetic will I do?
Would you add both those areas together and subtract them from the whole thing?
Sure, I could subtract them separately, or I could add them together first and subtract the whole thing. Either way works. So I take the blue one and the green one together, and then I take all that away from the whole thing. Everyone okay with my plan?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the whole thing is just the 14,000. And we're going to take away. Now I'll want steps that have formulas as appropriate. So since these are rectangles, it's going to be length times width for all of them. If they're only rectangles like this problem, maybe you could skip this step. It is kind of silly. But once you start having other shapes in, then it's good to keep track of all the formulas so you don't miss out on the 1/2s from triangles and things like that. Okay. So what is this? 14,000 minus parentheses 67 times 43 plus 77 times 38. Oops, come back in the parentheses. So I think so 8,193. And what is our unit?
Squared feet.
Square feet. Ta-da. Questions about that one?
No, thank you.
No.
21 is both shorter and trickier. We don't have a nice picture given to us anymore. We just have to kind of draw that ourselves. And the thing that we're labeling is a little hard to label. The perimeter, the distance all the way around is 40. So when I draw squares, what I really want to label is the edge. What's the edge of the square? What's one side?
10.
10. Everyone see why?
Yeah.
10, 20, 30, 40. Yeah. Okay. Now I actually have a picture I can work with. So what is the area?
Length times width.
It's a square. They're all 10.
100.
I'm actually going to put the feet in. So 10 times 10 is 100. And then feet times feet is square feet. Ta-da. Okay. When I want to draw this triangle, then it's a right triangle. What does right triangle mean?
It has a right angle.
It has a right angle. It has a bottom and a straight up and down like a doorstop, right? That's our right angle there. So I have three numbers, 14, 48, and 50. And for the area, I only want the base and the height. So whichever one is the diagonal, the hypotenuse, is a distraction for the area part. Which one goes there? Because I can't get that wrong or I'll mess up the area.
$50.
The 50. It's always the biggest one. And if you imagine that it's like a windshield wiper, and it was to come down, see how it would be longer than the bottom one? The biggest one is always the diagonal. So once we have that out of the way, it doesn't actually matter what we label the others. The way I drew it, it kind of has to be this. Okay, so we have the perimeter and the area. What did we do for the perimeter?
Do you add them?
You do. So 48 and 50 is going to be almost 100. We'll need two more, so 112, because we used 2 from the 14 to get to 100. So 112 centimeters. The area will be 1/2 times base times height. Most people like 0.5 times base times height. Fits in the calculator better. So 0.5 times 48 times 14, or like 48 times 7. So 336. That's going to be square centimeters since it's an area. Okay, questions on those two?
So when you're finding area of any shape besides like a circle and stuff, will it always be squared?
Yes, and that's again that how you measure area is you imagine that I take our shape and we're trying to treat it like the floor of some strange room. I'm not sure what room you'd have in your house shaped like a triangle, but I'm putting square centimeters on 1, 2, 3, and so on. And mine are too big. You'd have to have 14 going up and down the side there. But we're counting how many squares it takes to cover that. Each one of these would be 1 centimeter on a side. So
Okay, and then when you're finding, oh, never mind, actually.
yeah, so perimeter isn't tiles, it is just rope. You're taking a piece of rope or string and lying it around this shape. How far did you go? Or you're an ant marching along it. How far did you go? So that's just a plain length, but area is always square units. '23, we have 2 circles and someone is trying to trick us. For one of them, the problem describes the radius. For the other, it describes the diameter. So we need to make them comparable. What do I label this blue line? Is this a radius or a diameter?
Radius.
Radius. Okay, where does the 34 go? What color?
Yellow.
Yellow.
Yellow. So that means that the green number is what?
Radius.
It is. What is
I
it?
got 17.
17. Yeah, half of
17.
it. 7 look less like a question. Okay, so the area of a circle.
Pi times radius times radius.
Yes. So for blue, that's going to be 21 for each of those radii. So what is that? Pi times 21 times 21 is about 1385. I don't need to worry about rounding since it's just saying which of these is bigger. For the green one, same formula. Well, I guess I have to worry a little. It says how much, so I will round them consistently. Otherwise, I'd already know which is bigger because it's whichever had the biggest radius. So that's about 908. And then by how much?
$477 square inches.
Okay. At all. I'm kind of curious. I obviously use this calculator so that it's in the recording. A handheld calculator wouldn't make it on the screen. Does anyone else use this Desmos calculator webpage when they're working?
No, I tried using my phone and it does not work.
Some phone apps are better than others. Yes.
I do sometimes, but not every time.
I'm trying to think if I ever use it when I'm not lecturing. Maybe I do sometimes. But it's nice to have a calculator you can just pick up in your hands too. Okay, that wasn't bad. Just keep track of the steps carefully. Are we just plowing through till 8:20, by the way? We didn't have a break yet.
I would like to have a 5-minute break, please.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Thank you.
So 26, I'm skipping. I hadn't realized it was there. It's one that's Math 20, but not level C, one of the few ways the classes are different. If you want to do 26, you can. The answer key will guide you through it, but it's a good one to skip. So since you don't have to do all of them anyway, we'll just say turn in 33 out of 38. I'll grade your best 33 out of 38. And these are the ones that matter. So here's 3 different versions of equations to solve that are slightly different. The easy one is 24. 30 is P times 3. How do I get that times 3 off P?
Divide by 3 to
Divide.
both sides.
Then that gets the P by itself. 30 divided by 3 is 10, and I'm done. Everyone okay with that one?
Yeah.
27 is the same kind of thing. A number minus 1/63 equals 1/9. So how do I get 1 minus 1/63 away from y?
Add 1/63.
Add 1/63. And if I do it to one side, I do it to the other. I recommend on this, don't try and fit it in this little area here. Just go off to the side and say, what is 1/9 plus 1/63? I can make it 60/3 for both of them. I need to do a times 7 top and bottom. 9 times 7 is 63. If I have 7 60/3 plus 1 60/3, that's 8 60/3. And I put that there and I'm done. I can't reduce that. So everyone okay with 27?
Yeah.
So straightforward. This one you have to write the equation yourself first. And there's a little bit of fraction math just to make sure you remember how to do that after all these weeks. Okay, 25 is a different creature. I have minus 14 divided by q. And division isn't symmetrical, what math people call commutative. It's not true that 8 divided by 4 and 4 divided by 8 are the same thing. So this is not how do I get a negative 14 off of q. This is instead that q is happening to my negative 14. It's a subtle difference that makes this one twice as hard. So I have to get my divided by q off of a negative 14. So how do I get rid of a divided by q?
Multiply by q.
Multiply by q. Then I get a minus 14 is now by itself. And on this side, I have 7 times q. Now, multiplying is symmetrical, is commutative. 7 times q and q times 7 are the same. 4 times 2 and 2 times 4 are both 8. So now I can say, how do I get a times 7 off q?
Divide by 7.
Divide by 7. And q is now by itself. Negative 14 divided by 7 is going to be negative 2. And I'm done. If I wasn't sure, I could always check my work. And negative 14 divided by negative 2 is 7. So this is tricky, not only because it has a negative to freak you out for no good reason, but it's 2 steps. You have one step and then the step that looks familiar. You have to get to the one-step equation. So 25 is one that's not hard. They all fit this pattern exactly. But it's also true that it's much bigger than 24 or 27. If you wanted to skip 25, you could. Just wait till level D to do that. Or you can say, I'm good at that. And I tend to have about 50-50 students. Half the students like it, think it's an easy point. Half the students want to skip it. So it's one of the reasons you don't have to turn in every problem. But if I take it off the test, then the students that like it tend to fuss at me and say, that was an easy point. I want to do that one. Okay, we've used up all 20 slides on the Jamboard. There's more problems to do. Try them at home. We'll talk about them on Thursday. We'll talk about your other questions on Thursday. And keep doing practice tests, not only this one, but just random ones, loading up the page yourself. Go to Justice and overview here, or the link that's direct in the email I sent you. And then there won't be any surprises next week. And whenever you're ready for one that is kind of the official one, let me know, and I will send you that without the answers. And if you get it done this week or first half of next week and it doesn't work out well, you can always try it again because you'll have time until Friday of next week. Usually that doesn't happen. You can just do enough practice tests, you know you're going to do okay. Any last questions?